See clearly that all experience shines brightly with the knowing of it. For those of you that are here for the first time, please understand that when I use the word knowing, I do not mean conceptual knowledge. I mean knowing in the sense of being aware of or experiencing. When you tread on your cat's tail, the cat knows the pain. It does not conceptualize the experience of pain, but it knows the experience or is aware of it. It is in that context that I use the word knowing. It is always synonymous with being aware of. See that all experience, irrespective of its content, shines with the knowing of it. It's very easy to check this in your experience. Just imagine removing the fact of knowing or being aware from your current experience. What would remain of experience? Absolutely nothing. Knowing, being aware, or awareness itself is the essential ingredient in all experience. Knowing, being aware, or awareness itself is not itself located within experience. It is not an object of experience. It is the medium upon which, or within which, all experience arises and exists, and into which it vanishes. In other words, knowing, being aware, or awareness itself is the context of experience, never the content of experience. From the conventional, dualistic, or materialistic point of view, time and space are the context or the medium within which all experience arises. But if we make a simple, honest, unbiased investigation of our experience, we must admit that time and space arise or appear and disappear in our experience like any other object of experience. In what medium do time and space arise? In consciousness, in awareness, in the field of knowing. Again, for those of you that are here for the first time, I use the words awareness and consciousness synonymously. We tend to believe that awareness arises in time and space. But if we stay close to the evidence of experience, time and space arise in consciousness. That is simply an indisputable fact of experience. Everything that is ever known, has ever been known, or could ever be known, arises in consciousness. However hard we may struggle with the implications of this statement, we cannot deny the truth of it. All we are interested in here is the truth or reality of our experience, irrespective of its consequences.
I've hit a bit of a sticking point early on, which is that, as I understand it, we are trying to get to grips with or understand awareness, consciousness, that which experiences experience. But the only tools that we have to do that are experience and thought. And yet we're trying to understand the nature of something which is beyond or behind experience and thought. And so I feel as if that's sort of akin to trying to understand the quality of water without ever being able to get in the water by reading about it or looking at it or listening to the sound of it. But it's as if I hit a force field at the edge of it, at the edge of my experience, beyond which I can't, I'm trying to understand something which transcends the tools with which I have to understand it.
Okay. So if I asked you the question, are you aware? What would you say?
I think I say I'm not sure. I'm not just being truculent.
You're not sure whether you are aware or not.
I could honestly say that I experience.
If you experience, you must be aware, because it's not possible to have experience without awareness. So just go back to the question. It's not a trick question. It's a very simple question. Are you aware?
Yes, I think I could answer yes, but
Why the doubt?
Because I don't feel like I can get to the quality of that awareness.
I haven't yet asked you about the quality of it.
Sure.
I've just asked you about the fact of it. Are you aware?
Yes.
No, I still detect some hesitation. Why the hesitation?
I think because I'm trying to answer that from a point of experience.
Well, is it your experience that you are aware or not?
Yes.
That's better. Okay. So, being aware is your experience. I'm not interested at this stage in what you are aware of. Just the fact of being aware is your experience. It is the simplest, most obvious, most intimate experience there is. Are you with me?
Yes.
So, if being aware is your experience, the fact of awareness is your experience, whose experience is it? What is it that is aware? that there is awareness? What is it that knows the experience, I am aware? Does a thought know the experience? Can a thought know something?
No, I don't think so.
No, but why I don't think so? Why not just a clear, resounding no? A thought is just a series of abstract sounds or images that pass through your mind. A thought is known. It does not do the knowing.
No, I completely agree with that.
What about a sensation? Take the sensation of your hand on the mic. Mm-hmm. Is the sensation aware? Or is the sensation something that you are aware of?
The latter.
What about the sight of this room, which is just an example of a perception? Is a perception itself aware, or is it something that we are aware of?
The latter again.
Okay, so thoughts are not themselves aware. Feelings, sensations, and perceptions are not themselves aware. They are objects, albeit subtle ones, that we are aware of. And when we say we are aware of them, what is the we? What is it that is aware of experience?
Awareness.
Whatever it is what we call awareness. Now, instead of taking a thought, a sensation, or a perception, and asking yourself the question, what is it that is aware of these objects? You quite rightly answered awareness. Take the experience of being aware, which is your experience. You know that you are aware. Now, what is it that knows that you are aware, or that there is awareness?
Awareness again.
Perfect. So when we know our thoughts, sensations, or perceptions, awareness is the subject of the experience, the knower of the experience, and thoughts, sensations, and perceptions are the objects of experience. Yes? There's one experience that is an exception to this subject-object relationship, and that is the knowledge, I am aware. The fact of being aware, or the fact that the experience, there is awareness, is known by awareness. It is awareness that knows that there is awareness. It is I that knows that I know. So, going back to your original question, when you say the tool with which we are exploring the nature of awareness has no access or knowledge to that awareness, that is not true. Because it is awareness that knows awareness. And awareness is extremely well qualified to know itself. It knows itself more intimately than it knows our most intimate thoughts and feelings. So when you ask the question, with what instrument can we explore the nature of awareness, given that the instrument that we use, the mind, has no access to awareness, it's like saying, with what instrument can the sun be illuminated? The sun illuminates itself. It does not need to be illuminated by another object. Awareness is known by itself. It is not known by something other than itself. And awareness's knowledge of itself shines in your experience as the knowledge I am. That is awareness's primary knowledge of itself.
Thank you. That's clearer. I think so. I'll mull it over lunch.
Ponder it, and it will become clearer as the week goes on.
Thanks.
Hello, Rupert.
Hi, Chris.
I understand that the knowing with which I know my experience is the same knowing with which you know your experience, but I can't quite get over this sort of contrary feeling that it's different, that I'm somehow this... I know what I am is awareness, but I have a feeling that I am this sort of amorphous knowing entity that knows my experience, and that you are a different knowing entity that knows your experience. And I know my experience here, but wherever you are, it's not here.
Okay, so if the knowing with which each of us knows our experience was different, there would have to be each field of knowing or field of awareness would have to be limited. Okay? The field of awareness in which your experience appears and the field with which it is known, and the field of awareness in which my experience appears and with which it is known would be two separate fields. If you drew them on a bit of paper, they'd be two separate circles. So now, put that theory to the test of your experience and see if you can find an edge to the field of experience, the field of awareness in which your experience appears and with which it is known.
I can't find an edge, but I'm also quite comfortable with the feeling of overlapping fields.
But if they were overlapping fields, they'd have to be two different fields. And if they were two different fields, each would have to be bounded in some way.
Would it? I don't really see
What
that.
would distinguish them one from the other?
The centre in which they come from. So it's a concept of space.
Do you have an experience that awareness comes from anything, from a centre?
I feel that my awareness is here. It's here. This is where my experience takes place. Here.
The place you call here is a perception in awareness.
Yes.
That's your experience. This place you call it, that you point to as here, this physical location, your only knowledge of it is your current perception.
It's the only place I know. That's where all my experience happens, is here.
All your experience happens at a place, at what you call here. But if you investigate clearly the experience here, it is not a place in space.
Yes.
It is true that your experience always appears here. And if you investigate that experience, here is always the same experience.
Yes.
So we imagine that here is a location in space. In other words, that I, awareness, am located at a particular place in space. But if we investigate not the experience of here, but the place in space, our only knowledge of this place in space is the current perception. And that perception appears in awareness.
Yes.
So we cannot say that the awareness is located in that place, because that place is located in awareness.
Yes.
That's your experience. And then you can further substantiate or corroborate that observation by checking to see if awareness was located at a particular place, it would have to be limited, because awareness would be in this place and not in that place. So awareness would have to come to an end somewhere. But is that your experience?
My experience is that there is only one place that's here.
Okay, but if there's only one place, then that place cannot be a place in space, because if there's only one place, then there is no space. Yeah, space is the distance between this place and that place. If, as you quite rightly say, there is only one place, it's the place we call here. In other words, if, as you rightly imply, we never go to the place called over there. And remember, space is the distance between here and there. That we never go to the place called there. Nobody has ever stepped out of the here and visited the place called here. So actually, if you go really closely into the experience that you call here, here is not a place in space. Here is where I am, or where consciousness is.
It's where my experience takes place. But it seems to me that your experience doesn't take place.
When you say
here.
it is where my experience takes place, you immediately superimpose the idea of space onto awareness.
Right.
It's more accurate to say that here is the experience at which my experience takes place. And then you free it from any superimposition of space.
Okay. But
Close your eyes now, Chris. Without referring to... Is it true to say that your experience, whatever your experience is now, is taking place at the experience you call here?
Yes.
Now, without reference to thought or memory, do you have any experiential knowledge of space?
No.
You see, the experience here and the experience of space are not the same experience. Just that simple experiment you've just done shows you that you can have the experience of being here without having the experience of being located in space. Now, why is it that when you open your eyes, the experience here is associated with space? Only because perception begins. And perception makes you believe that the experience you call here is a place in space.
Yeah.
But if you really stay attentive to your experience, the experience here is always the same experience. So in fact, you never really experience that you go anywhere. The experience here is always the same experience. It's easier to think of it with time first. The experience now is always the same experience. You haven't had the experience of numerous nows this evening. It's just, or even during your entire life, it's always the same now. We don't really have the experience that now is moving through time. The now is always the same now. There are not numerous different present moments. There is just the present, just now. It's always the same experience. It's not going anywhere. Well, here is the same experience. It never changes. The experience here never changes. Wherever you are, in quotes, wherever you seem to be in space, the experience is always, I am here. And that experience is not an experience in space. Space takes place in that experience.
Yes, I think I'm good with that, but I'm here. Where are you?
I'm at exactly the same here that you are at. It is only perception that makes it seem that these two heres are two different places in space. But the here where each of us are at is the same dimensionless presence of consciousness. It is perception that refracts consciousness and makes it appear as space. In other words, time and space are not fundamental to reality. They are what reality looks like when refracted through the prism of thought and perception. Consciousness is unlimited. That is our experience. We look for a limit in consciousness and we never find it. So it is not for the one who claims that consciousness is unlimited to prove it, because it is simply our experience. It is the one who believes that it is limited to prove it, to show the limit in consciousness. If they were two overlapping fields, what would distinguish the two fields, one from the other? What would enable you, okay, they're overlapping like this, but what would enable you to say that this one is different from this one?
Well, they're obviously different because we have different experience.
No, you're now talking about the content of consciousness. The content of this room is different from the content of the dining room. Yeah. Does that imply, does it prove or even imply that the space in which the content of this room appears is different from the space in which the content of the dining room appears? No, they're the same space. The content is different, but they're the same space. Now, why could not the content of your mind and the content of my mind be different, but the space of awareness in which they appear be the same?
They could be. It's just it doesn't feel like that. I really want to believe that.
Have you never experienced love?
Yes.
What do you think that experience is? When you feel love, do you not feel that your being and the being of the one you love is shared?
Yes. I was wondering if that was the only way in.
Maybe love is the evidence that consciousness is shared. Maybe that's the form that the evidence comes in. It can be articulated with a thought. Consciousness is shared, consciousness is infinite, but that's just a thought. But it must be more than a thought. It's not what's important is it an experience? Now, what kind of an experience would the experience of this shared consciousness be? That it would have to be experienced in some way. It would have to be an experience. You as you say, I don't believe it, but you don't want to just believe it or not. You want to experience. So there'd have to be some kind of experience that was the evidence that consciousness is shared. Now, could it be that love is that evidence? Maybe that's just what love is. The recognition of our shared being. Maybe that is the evidence. Because the evidence is obviously not going to come in the form of a thought. I'm not just going to argue with you or prove to you rationally. I can't. And anyway, it wouldn't, just an argument wouldn't be proof. It's just words. It's just it has to be an experience. That's what would convince. But what would that experience be? Maybe that's what consider the possibility that that's what love is. The evidence that consciousness is universal.
Yes.
I mean, after all, whenever you feel love, don't you feel that whatever separated you from the other person, to a greater or lesser extent, dissolved?
Yes.
So my suggestion that love is the evidence that consciousness is universal is consistent with our experience that as the sense of separation diminishes in direct proportion to the sense of the diminishing of the sense of separation, love is experienced. The more separation, the less love. The less separation, the more love. And does this, again, not also make sense? Is there anything you value more in life than love? Is there anything you would want more in life than love?
No.
And doesn't that again suggest that when the self, infinite consciousness, localizes itself in the form of each of us, it, at least to an extent, gets cut off from its knowledge of itself as it essentially is, because it becomes temporary and finite, and therefore it longs to go back to itself, hence the impulse in each of us to find happiness or to find love. And in other words, that that love is the very nature. The reason we seek it, the reason an individual seeks it, is because what the individual wants more than anything else is to be divested of its limitations and to be returned to its origin, its unlimited origin, which is the experience of love. I'm suggesting that love is infinite consciousness. And for that reason, all people love above all else.
Yes, I think that answers my question.